From the devs absolutely roasting their fans to deleting your entire save file, these are 19 games that trolled players. While you're playing through The Witcher 3, the game will force you to make numerous decisions to get one of 36 possible endings. But make the wrong choices and the devs will troll you. In your spare time when you're tired of hunting monsters, you'll come across the two main love interests, Yennefer and Triss. Now you can romance both of them, but anyone who thinks they can get away with dating two people at once will be taught an embarrassing lesson. The girls will make it seem like they want to fulfill your wildest fantasy, but right when it gets interesting, their true plans revealed, leaving you half naked begging for help. And in High on Life, the devs also prank you in the most hilarious way. Over in Blim City, you can find an NPC that'll ask you to watch over his bike. Now it seems like a pretty straightforward side quest, but make sure you don't take your eyes off it. If you look away for even a split second, the bike will vanish and the guy will instantly come back to roast you.
Where's my bike? I asked you to watch my bike and you just let someone take it? Where'd it go? You!
And over in Saints Row 4, the developers straight up punish you for being a good person. After playing through the entire campaign, the final mission presents you with a choice. You can either rescue your friend Matt or choose to save humanity by sacrificing yourself. Now you'd think saving mankind would give you that satisfying ending you're hoping for, but instead you get a game over screen and an achievement that says you chose poorly. But that doesn't mean you should start being selfish. At the end of Dead Rising 3, you have to meet up with your friends so you can all hop on a plane and escape the Horde. But if you decide to take the plane for yourself, it gives you an option called Screw Everyone Time to Leave. Except this doesn't really go the way you intended. Your friends will just straight up punch you in the face and then fly away without a second thought. And over in Detroit Become Human, there's a new Easter egg every time you boot up the game. The main menu lets you talk to an android named Chloe, and while most of the things she says are pretty harmless, don't let your guard down. There's a small chance that you can open up the menu and be given the worst news imaginable.
Oops. I think your saved game is corrupted. Just kidding.
But one of my favorite trolls is with Borderlands 2's Bane gun. At first you think, wow, this has got to be the most overpowered thing in the game. Except every time you fire, it makes the most annoying sound of all time. But no worries, you could just turn down the volume, right? Well, it turns out that you can mute every single volume slider and it won't affect the gun at all. And in Far Cry 6, the developers went way too far because the game trolls you in real life. If you start playing and decide to take a break or just aren't feeling it, a few days later a message from Anton Castillo, the villain of the game, will appear in your email. He'll actually thank you for leaving him alone and giving him free reign of the country, while also revealing your embarrassing kill count and playtime. This is a super funny way to get players back into the game, but at the same time, I'm a little creeped out that he has my email. But one of the most frustrating trolls can be found exactly where you'd expect. In Grand Theft Auto 5, you can come across the optional submarine mission where you're tasked at collecting 30 pieces of evidence from around the map. Like, these are literally so hard to find, it takes forever even with a guide. So as a reward for hours of dedication, you're given the biggest slap in the face ever as Rockstar hands you a measly $10. But you'll feel even more betrayed in God of War Ragnarok when Thor challenges Kratos. The battle is devastating as you try to hold back the power of Thor, but just when you start to get the advantage, he suddenly becomes 10 times more powerful, killing you instantly. Or so the devs would make you think.
Oh no. I say when we're done. I'm not leaving till I see the real.
But it's still not as clever as Diablo 3's secret mission that gives a huge middle finger to critics. When the game first came out, Blizzard was swarmed with complaints about the art style, with some diehard fans calling it cartoony. So instead of ignoring them, the devs decided to show just how cartoony they could really be. In this secret level, everything is childlike with unicorns and rainbows, and players quickly realized that this art style could have been so much worse. But if there's anyone who can live up to this level of trolling, it's Metal Gear Solid. Towards the end of the second game, it'll suddenly start bugging out and a fake game over screen will appear. Your character's still moving around in the top left corner, but it's in a tiny box, and the only way to tell that this whole thing isn't real is the big fission mailed text on screen. But as soon as you breathe that sigh of relief about your game being safe, the torture doesn't end. Right when you're about to finish the story, you'll get a random call from your colonel saying this.
Right.
turn the game console off right now.
Now, he sounded so serious that it actually led to a ton of players panicking and shutting off their consoles. And that's not even the only time a developer has made us feel like we're losing our mind. In Eternal Darkness, when you come across enemies, your sanity meter will slowly deplete. But these guys take this mechanic way further than you could ever imagine. As you become more insane, the game will begin to mess with your mind. Having things like bugs crawl across the screen, pretending to disconnect your controller, and even fake deleting your entire save file. And they're not the only devs to completely troll players. When Devil May Cry was rebooted in 2013, fans were furious over Dante's haircut, which had been changed entirely. So in response to the backlash, Ninja Theory added this hilarious scene that shows everyone just how ridiculous the original hairstyle was.
Not in a million years.
But at least there you know you're being trolled, unlike Batman Arkham Asylum, where thousands of people were tricked by the devs. After spending hours progressing through the story, you'll come face to face with Scarecrow. But just as you prepare to fight him, things get super weird. Before you enter the room, the game freezes and then glitches out. Now you might think that it just crashed, but after restarting, a cutscene plays and it seems way too familiar. And that's because it's the start of the game and all that progress that you've made has now been wiped out. That's until the mission starts to change and suddenly Batman's a prisoner, which just reveals this whole prank was a hallucination. At least they're just joking around with the player, unlike the most elaborate prank in Pokemon history. Everyone loves Gengar, and if you want him, you usually have to evolve a Haunter to do so. Except there's one problem. Haunters have to be traded with someone in order to evolve. Now this really isn't an issue except for in Diamond and Pearl, where the devs trolled millions of players who are still holding a grudge to this day. There's this NPC called Mindy who will offer to trade Haunter. This sounds like an amazing deal until you realize the one she gives you is holding an Everstone, which stops Pokemon from evolving. She then laughs at you saying, "Did my Haunter turn into something else? Just kidding." What a jerk. And if you decide to play a way out, prepare for your friendships to fall apart thanks to a devastating twist. The whole point of the game is to work together and figure out the best way to escape prison. After bonding for countless hours, it's easy to think that you're gonna get that happy ending, until the developers decide to flip everything on its head. Suddenly you're forced to fight each other because only one of you can be left standing. Depending on who wins, there'll be a different ending where you pay respects to your friend that you just straight up murdered. This has gotta be one of my favorite trolls out there. And it's not the only game with a huge plot twist. In Assassin's Creed 3, you start the game as Haytham Kenway, a charming British assassin who makes his way to America. Despite spending dozens of hours with him, you would never predict what happens next. Midway through the game, he's revealed to be a Templar, the people you're supposed to be fighting. While you sit at the screen shocked at what just happened, the developers drop the message saying, "How'd you like them apples?" Still not as surprising as Mario Kart's sudden change that shocked the world. When playing Peach Gardens, it feels like a completely normal game until you hit the final lap. And I gotta say, this one totally caught me off guard. Out of nowhere, you start to drive in the other direction, racing into oncoming traffic. You could work so hard to get into first place, only to crash into someone at the very last second. And if that didn't make you rage quit, then this hilarious prank in Goat Simulator will finish the job. Throughout the third game, there's a ton of billboards promoting various movies, fake companies, and musicals. And just when you think you've spotted a poster for Fast and the Furious, instead you've got Vaughn Dossel promoting Alt F4. Obviously, if you press those buttons, well, just don't press them. And those were 19 games that trolled players. It's been Sammy. Keep it here on T5G.